Do you ever ask yourself how and why so many younger people are so heavily tattooed? If you have a tattoo, do you ask yourself why you might want to get another? I do ask myself the first question, and you might want to start asking yourself the second one. Admittedly, I am an older gentleman, a man of a past generation. So for me, this current reality is a dramatic change since I was 20. Like every topic we discuss, my foundation here is as a Christian modernist. I'll unpack that in my conclusions, but first, let's look at what the research actually says about tattoos. Getting a tattoo is essentially a controlled form of physical trauma. The steady, rhythmic piercing of the skin, up to 3,000 times a minute, triggers a classic fight or flight response. The moment the needle penetrates the dermis, the second layer of your skin, your central nervous system recognizes pain and floods your body with endorphins. They block pain signals, but that is why the first 15 minutes feels the most intense. It takes a moment for your natural painkillers to take the edge off. Simultaneously, your adrenal glands pump adrenaline into your bloodstream, spiking your heart rate and sharpening your senses. Now, as the session ends, your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and reward. This creates a powerful sense of accomplishment and deep relief. This potent neurochemical loop, moving from acute stress to euphoria, is why the experience feels so validating and why people go back for more. While not chemically addictive, it is habit forming. For some, it acts as an emotional reset. And if used to cope with stress or emotional pain, it creates a really strong psychological desire to repeat the cycle when stress or emotional pain are experienced again. But there are serious medical risks to modifying your body's largest organ. The needle passes through the epidermis, the outer shield, and into the dermis, that second layer, where the ink is deposited and sits permanently. The dermis houses your blood vessels, nerves, and immune cells. This introduces several distinct health risks. First, it strains your immune system. Your body views ink as a permanent invasion. White blood cells engulf the pigment to protect you, trapping it so the tattoo stays visible. However, microscopic ink fragments constantly break away into your nearby lymphatic system. In heavily tattooed individuals, lymph nodes routinely become permanently stained the color of the ink, which leaves your lymphatic system locked in a continuous infection response, which can degrade your ability to fight off actual uninvited illnesses. Second, it impairs your sweating. See, your skin regulates your internal temperature. Clinical studies show heavily tattooed skin produces roughly 50% less sweat, and that the sweat produced has a higher sodium concentration. The microtrauma permanently damages local sweat glands, which can impair your body's ability to cool itself during intense heat or heavy exertion. Third, a heavy metal load in your bloodstream could take place. You see, tattoo inks are classified as cosmetics, not pharmaceuticals, and are not tightly regulated. Many pigments contain heavy metals like nickel, chromium, manganese, and cobalt. Over time, as your body tries to break down large-scale tattoos, these metals enter your bloodstream and place a heavy filtration burden on your liver and kidneys. Fourth, a breakdown of your natural infection barrier. See, a large-scale tattoo breaks your sterile skin wall millions of times, leaving an open wound, highly vulnerable to pathogens like staph or MRSA. Deep dermal infections can lead to severe scarring, tissue death, and even body-wide infection known as sepsis. Finally, the color of ink can mask cancer. Your skin must be monitored for malignancies like melanoma. Dense, dark tattoo pigment completely masks changing moles, asymmetrical borders, or shifting skin colors, frequently delaying cancer detection until it has spread. Now, beyond these physical risks, when you step back from the medical data, you have to ask, what is this chemical loop actually doing? Why is it there? And what are you substituting for that natural purpose? That sense of profound validation and relief is a chemical state humans would naturally experience through two very different life experiences. It was a response to risky and frequently painful, arduous work, combat, or hunting. And it was a response to deep, intimate social connection through marriage, through family, through building a community. We don't have as many chances for the first these days, thank goodness. For the second, real relationships are messy. They cause intense emotional friction and require sacrifice and accepting the risk of rejection. Today we see a generation master the art of shortcutting that natural reward system. See, getting a tattoo is very similar to online gaming. A gamer can sit in a room alone and achieve an immense sense of status, competence, and tribal belonging through an avatar, completely bypassing the social effort of real-world work and relationships, but triggering similar internal chemical reactions. Similarly, a tattoo collector achieves a massive sense of personal transformation entirely on their own terms because it's not real. They control the timeline, they buy the outcome, and they don't have to risk their vulnerability on another person. The tattooer is going to like it. Human beings possess an innate need to face and overcome real challenges, the kind of meaningful hardships that prove our strength and shape our identity. Historically, we have found those challenges by weathering trials alongside a partner, inside a family, or with a neighbor. We have found those challenges by building unbreakable, intimate human bonds in the process. And today, we can simply manufacture our own private struggles. A gamer fights a virtual boss. A tattoo collector endures thousands of needle punctures. Both get a genuine, chemically backed sense of triumph. But because these tattooing and gaming challenges are completely self-contained, they don't feed back into our social fabric. See, it transforms the beautiful, difficult quest for relational intimacy into a solo consumer product. If we can manipulate our own body chemistry to feel validated entirely within our own skin, we may lose our primary incentive to seek out, compromise with, and cherish other people. It's hard to quantify or measure this kind of cost. But keep it in mind when you read or hear about how hard younger people are finding just living in community. This brings me back to my foundational worldview as a Christian modernist. As a modernist, I believe that any adult over 18 should be entirely free to choose to get a piercing or a tattoo, provided they have weighed the medical and psychological facts rationally. Here's where it gets a bit more difficult. See, experience tells me that the tattoo and piercing industries need common sense regulation to help people consider things rationally, just like we regulate other risky behaviors. While a piercing doesn't carry the same lifetime chemical burden as ink, both represent a serious physical intrusion, which leads me to see a need for regulation at the lowest level of government possible. We do need to set a high bar to protect minors and individuals with pre-existing conditions like immune deficiencies. Tattooing and piercing providers should be legally accountable to make a reasonable effort to ensure sobriety and informed consent are obtained. Individual rationality may be beyond a business's control, but those businesses shouldn't profit off of the clearly irrational. When we regulate, we need to be thinking about more than just physical harm. We need to consider the impact on all of us and not just on individuals. When we use a needle or a video game to manufacture our own private struggles and shortcut our own brain chemistry, we are withdrawing from the world. As a community, we must consider how to deal with the pressure that results on real intimacy from tattooing and piercings. See, we cannot afford a further breakdown of partnerships, of families, and of communities, or the continued loss of our real, collective problem-solving capabilities. We have real challenges ahead of us. I will mention my views as a Christian. Here, I look at the heart behind the behavior, not from a judgment seat, but from a personal discernment perspective. See, I don't believe getting a tattoo is inherently a sin, but the behavior behind the tattoo can be. For me, sin is any cognitive behavior that puts the self before loving God or loving your neighbor. If I put myself at undue risk or steal myself away from my community, I think I am at risk of sinning. Bottom line, tattoos and piercings are not for me. I will likely never see them as attractive or useful or desirable. I can understand intellectually why someone might use getting a tattoo as a way to feel better about themselves or to feel in control. I will always caution against doing things to escape reality as unhelpful in the long term. Things done to create a false reality are the same as doing things to escape reality. But there are worse things than getting a small tattoo or a piercing, and I can and have looked the other way. Tattoos and piercings are serious business. We should treat them seriously. This, I believe. Aloha.